Right then, I want to move on, Paul, because obviously last night the quotes come out. You guys had spoke to Arne again after the press conference, I believe, and it was talking about the January window and obviously the potential signing of Geertruida, and that not going through. And then I found the quote interesting when Arne said, I think I've said that we tried to strengthen the squad, so that probably tells you, and then that he wanted players, and I don't think I was the only one who wanted that. It goes on to say, you know, it's about getting the right player. He didn't name check Geertruida, but did someone ask him about him, and he said like, that one didn't quite work out. We spoke in the earlier segment about a lad in his mid-20s, and that's what he would have been. So it looked like here then Arne Slot and Liverpool did want somebody in this window. Forget the Xhaka thing, park that. They wanted someone now as well. First of all, they waited so late again. This Geertruida deal, if they wanted him, and we got to like the last knock into the window, and it wasn't even a lad, it was a lad who was on loan at another club. It feels very, very messy that they found themselves in this situation again, was it? Yeah. Was it a case of maybe the latest round of injuries, maybe to like Jeremy Frimpong, Joe Gomez, although he's close to being back, like give them the final nudge? Because they waited a long time, and then it appears they landed on a lad who it was going to be very, very difficult to get out of Leipzig via Sunderland. Yeah,
very complex deal, wasn't it? And I was a bit surprised. I was off over the weekend, so surprised when I first read about it on Sunday morning. I mean, he was Arne Slot's captain, a Feyenoord, so clearly a player who the manager knows inside and out, and he will vouch for him, and you know, he's given his thumbs up to go and get him. But he's already on loan at Sunderland, so that complicates things further, because while in an ideal world, you just sort of take that loan registration. Sunderland was said to have recognised the opportunity that Geertruida was being presented with, but needed a replacement themselves, understandably. And had they done that a week earlier, maybe there was time for that to happen. But, you know, it emerged on Sunday morning, and by Sunday night, I think it was being accepted that it was probably too complex a deal to pull off. So, you know, I think there's some quotes coming out from Arne tonight which sort of allude to this, but the work that goes in to a transfer is not as simple as just sort of, you know, the old footy manager search and just think, oh, let's see if we can get him in. There's that much that goes into it. You know, they can't just try and get a body in just for the sake of having a body, and I think they've been burned with that a little bit before with Kabak and Ben Davies, who neither of them. Well, Ben Davies didn't kick a ball for Liverpool, did he? But neither of those two finished the season playing for Liverpool. But they were still paying the wages and all that sort of stuff. So I think they had the fingers burned there and didn't want to sort of repeat. But from Slot's perspective, I think it's very clear that he did want to add to the squad, and he feels that he is a little bit short at the moment and wanted the cover. And Liverpool have decided that, you know, rather than plan for the short-term stopgap, we're going to get a long-term, you know, player who we think is going to be one of the best around in Jeremy Xhaka, which is an interesting pivot, really. You know, was there a world where both could have been done? Maybe if it was a week or 10 days earlier, perhaps they could have done both. But as it is, Slot wanted someone, didn't get someone in, and Liverpool end the window with the same squad that they started with, really.
Yeah, this quote's interesting. He says, you know, that's why we tried to strengthen the squad in the winter break. He's talking there about, like, you know, there's a couple of injuries. And the player we mentioned, again, Geertruida, in the end, he wasn't available. But we tried to strengthen the squad, that is clear. I do go back to it, like, it was very late that this all happened. You know, we sat on the show numerous weeks and we were like, yeah, it looks like it's going to be quiet. The sense is Liverpool aren't going. Now, obviously, there would have been stuff going on behind the scenes. And maybe I'm just naive again, Paul. Like I say, I'm not as clued up. But, like, is it that hard to find a centre-half who, with all due respect to Geertruida, he's a good player, but he's a lad who's on loan at Sunderland from Leipzig? You know, is there nobody in Europe for a similar fee who Liverpool have got on the list going, we could have got him?
Yeah.
Because, again, I'm not saying, like, Arne Slot's being, like, you know, using Mo Salahism, thrown under a bus or whatever, but he's the man fronting up at the moment. Liverpool are having a tough time. This Champions League qualification isn't by no means guaranteed, given, you know, Liverpool's recent form, albeit it's gotten a little bit better recently, but United and Chelsea feel like they're very much in that mix as well. Like, it just kind of feels a little bit like this could have been something. It should have been that difficult, really. And the fact that the manager is speaking to you guys, and you listen, we try, we want to players, but I don't know, mate. It shouldn't be that hard to go, with all due respect, to go and sign a decent defender from a mid-level European side. Surely that it can't be that difficult.
No, you're right. I can totally understand where you're coming from, and I think like say, had this been a week earlier, it might have given them enough of a fighting chance to get it done, but they've left it late, and they've left it late to settle on a player where it was a bit too complex. You know, clearly Slot knows the player and has vouched for him to Hughes or to whoever really, but you know, it's just a case of too much to do in too short a space of time. So, you know, they have rolled the dice on this one. I think it's fair to say they've taken a risk, and you know, your Champions League qualification hope shouldn't rest on signing a sort of bit of a versatile cover in the window. It really shouldn't, but it would have helped because now you're gambling on Joe Gomez getting fit, staying fit, which is always a big ask. Jeremy Frimpong suffered his third injury of the season and he's currently out, isn't he? He's not going to play on Sunday, so the options are really stretched, and Geertruida, he would have done the job, you know, and that's all you pretty much need at the moment, just someone to come in and do a job, maybe free up Dom Szoboszlai to go back into midfield and not play half the season at right back or 2/3 of the season. And if there's an injury to Canate now at centre back, what happens? You're left with Waterendo in there, maybe Gravenberch. I thought Gravenberch was really good against Karabag, a limited opposition, admittedly, but he's got a lot of traits that you like to see of a centre back, but he's got more traits that you want to see of your midfielder, isn't he? So you don't want to hamper too much by playing these top players out in the wrong positions. So yeah, I can certainly see what you mean in terms of could they not have just been a bit more proactive earlier in the window, but ultimately they've made their choice and now they are waiting to see if it was the right one. So time will tell, but yeah, I was with you. I thought, you know, a little bit of a stopgap cover, could someone have done a job?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, he would never admit this, mate, and like I say, you spoke to him, you guys spoke to Arne Slot, but like, do you think he maybe feels a little bit let down because he's clearly says, and you know, it's very rare actually that Liverpool head coach as manager will come out and go, yeah, we were actively trying to do this, it just didn't quite work out. Like sometimes we know that's happened because the reports of Liverpool were trying to get X player, Y player, but it's very rarely spoken about. It's kind of just acknowledged without being like publicly acknowledged. But the fact that he said this to you guys, it's open and it's out there. I do wonder deep down maybe if he is feeling a little bit like, yeah, I've been a little bit let down here because it's obvious that we've got issues. We're fighting at this moment in time on 3 fronts, albeit not for 3 trophies, but on 3 different fronts of Champions League qualification, Champions League, FA Cup, and it's took till 2 days to go in the window where we went for this deal that was a little bit complex. Yeah. I do wonder if you got, you know, give Arne the lie detector or the truth serum. Does he feel like he's been a little bit let down by those above him?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a culture at Liverpool where you don't sort of your dirty linen in public. Yeah. But I think he says it in those quotes there. It was clear and obvious that we needed someone or something to that effect. He definitely says clear and obvious about part of it. But you know, you look at someone like Antonio Conte, he was always outspoken about his needs. You know, it's happened to Chelsea a few times with Enzo Maresca. Oliver Glasner has been very outspoken about Palace's sort of inactivity. I don't think that would fly when you're at a club like Liverpool, and probably in the position that Arne Slot finds himself in as well, with question marks over his longevity and his ability to sort of arrest the slump. So that wouldn't have made sense for him to have gone on the front foot and accused the club of letting him down in terms of what he wanted in the window. And it's generally not the way Liverpool work anyway, is it? You know, we used the phrase we're all in alignment a couple of weeks ago, and maybe that was alluding to the fact that they'd finally accepted that maybe they did need a body or two. So, yeah, maybe he does feel as though, you know, perhaps more could have been done to have brought him a little bit of cover, you know, more than what they've ended up with. But I think he's done the right thing in not being outspoken about it as well. You know, he's answered it as honestly as he can to a point there when we spoke to him yesterday, because as soon as you start to look like there's a bit of unrest and a bit of disagreement behind the scenes, that normally creates a narrative that the manager's under pressure, doesn't it? And I think the last thing Slot wants at the moment is to look like he's under pressure any more than, you know, what comes with not winning every week for Liverpool. That
clear and obvious quote, by the way, he did say, I'm very happy with the squad, let that be clear, but it's clear and obvious that we've got 3 long-term injuries and that's why we've tried to strengthen the squad in the winter break. So yeah, it's a strange one because, like I say, and obviously you read the comments, you hear the supporters, there's a lot really criticism for Arne Slot recently, and some of it's justified, some of it might be a bit harsh, depends on whatever your viewpoint is, but You know, if he's gone to the board and he said, I think I need a player, and one hasn't been delivered, ultimately the results still fall on him. And if he's going to those above him, Paul, and saying, listen, we're short here, can I rely on Joe Gomez and Jeremy Frimpong come back from a third muscle injury to get me through the rest of the season at right back? Can I rely on just Ibu and Joe Gomez covering 2 positions at centre back? That's a big ask for him. I mean, I feel a little bit sorry in that regard for him. If he's gone to those above him and he's clearly identified, listen, we need someone not only for the short term but probably the long term, and it's not being delivered to him, I go back to it, ultimately the results still fall on his head. So he's now got to find solutions where there aren't too many solutions for him. That I do feel a bit sorry for him in that regard.
Yeah. And I think the fact that Liverpool identified Geertruida as the player to bring in when they were sort of breaking glass for the emergency says a lot, because it says to me that Slot has sort of gone cap in hand and said, look, any chance we can bring this player in, and know him well, I know his character, I know what he's able to do on the pitch, what he'd be like around the dressing room. It wasn't like Liverpool were just looking to sign a player who wasn't really on anyone's radar a week or two ago. So in that regard, you know, that to me just backs up the point that he was making yesterday, that, you know, we did want someone in and it hasn't happened. They've instead taken the decision to sign who they believe will be the future of their centre-back department for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And, you know, I'm sure he's going to be a fantastic talent, but Liverpool absolutely have to qualify in those top 4 or 5 spots, because the self-sustainable model, which Arne spoke a little bit about yesterday as well, you know, Liverpool operates on the basis of Champions League funds coming into the club. So they have to make sure that they're in that shake-up, really.
It'd be interesting to get who the remains on the list, because we mentioned before, going into next season, as it stands, Liverpool will have Virgil van Dijk, Gio Leone, and then Jeremy Jacquet. As it stands, Ibu Konate won't be here. We'll see where without Joe Gomez he should be here, but again, he might be a right back depending on where Conor Bradley's at in his recovery at those points. You mentioned again earlier, maybe Liverpool getting that mid-20s player. It could be him, and it'll be interesting because if you go back in for him, maybe suggest it wasn't just that Ben Davies, Ozan Kabak panic buy. It was a player they'd really like. And if they don't, maybe suggest it was that type of deal as well. It would make sense for them to go back in for him. I guess we're going to have to just wait and see. Yeah,
I'd probably suggest it was a little bit of a Ozan Kabak style, you know, late in the day raid, more than, you know, this is the guy who we believe is going to come in on a 4 or 5 year contract for the, you know, rest of his 20s or whatever. So yeah, they didn't get him in. He's currently on loan at Sunderland, not necessarily playing a whole lot, is he? And yeah, that would suggest to me that Liverpool, with the ability to plan for the long term, probably won't be going back in for him.
Absolutely, yeah, mate, spot on. Let's leave it there. Now, let us know, by the way, your thoughts. If you're watching this as the clip, go and watch the full show, but let us know your thoughts on the whole situation. Would you think Arne Slot's been let down? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comment section or on social media. It'd be nice, though. That was a clip from Journo Insight. To check out the whole show, simply download the Redmen Plus app or click the link in the description.